know you guys love to engage on the question of natural remedies. And we have a very good expert guest on the topic of natural remedies who's no stranger to LSR Live. We're going to be having Dr. Laura Harris come up in just a couple of minutes. But you guys can already start now loading up your chat because she's going to have a nice conversation with myself on the topic for the first half of the program. And then the second half will go to your questions. Also, I should mention right out of the gates that we've got our sponsor here, Revita Living Products at the LSR store. And the great thing about getting these right now is they are actually in stock. I'm talking about the hand sanitizers. You got your citrus your citrus scent and your lavender scent, and you got your unscented and a peppermint scent, as well as, speaking of peppermint, the tasty throat spray, most popular item, Revita Guard. And I am hearing maybe I don't have absolute certainty of all of these items being in stock and the Revita Sinus that you guys have come to love so much. So as we're getting back to school, heading toward the fall months, this is probably a good time for you to just get in there, make sure you get those if those are something you enjoy using. So there's a QR code. Go to LSR store. I want to introduce our guest. So we've got her bio, Dr. Laura Harris. She is on the screen with us right now. I get to introduce you with me on the screen. She is a medical missionary. I love that term, with a passion for serving others. She's a board certified doctor of natural medicine who has received training through Wildwood College and a number of other institutions as well. And her natural wellness outfit is called Wellspring, and she's based in Connecticut. Dr. Laura, before we even really start talking about natural remedies, could you mention and just give us a summary of what is Wellspring? What is it that you do?
So Wellspring Health Ministries is a health ministry. We are located in Connecticut, as you just said, and we have a holistic approach to healing. We work with communities, we work with individuals, trying to help with mental health, physical health, spiritual health, and help set people on the journey towards a whole well-being that they may not have experienced before. We do classes in our communities. I travel and I speak, and then I also work with individuals one-on-one, both locally here in my office and virtually.
Excellent. And when you said "and virtually," folks, that's an invitation to you to click on that QR code or type in the URL wellspringlifestyle.org. You can get in touch with our guest, Dr. Laura Harris. And I know a bunch of you guys really already appreciated what she brought to the table when we had a conversation last time, about 3 months ago, on hydrotherapy and the use of water as a natural remedy. Now we're widening our scope. We're going to look at the big picture on natural remedies in general, getting specific ones for specific conditions, dealing with you guys questions on this is what I'm facing or a relative is facing. What can I do using God's methods, using nature, what you really need, the subtitle for the program. But I guess maybe we should kind of start with some definitions, Dr. Laura. What is a natural remedy?
So a natural remedy is something that is natural, something that we can find in nature. It's easy to find, and that it works with our bodies to help what God has designed it to be. So we were created to heal ourselves, to work towards health when we have an injury, when we have a virus. And so by implementing natural remedies, we're assisting our body in its healing process to achieve recovery from something we may be dealing with.
Excellent. Are there kind of like categories of natural remedies? I heard you mention injury. I think normally we just think I'm sick. How do I, but you've got multiple different things, internal, external. What are the kind of categories of natural remedies in your mind?
So when I teach about natural remedies, I like to break things down into different categories. There's hydrotherapy, like we've talked about before, where water is very natural and easy to obtain. But then there's a category I like to teach about poultices. There's food, there's herbs, there's supplements, and all of those things can be used to help promote health.
Okay, I think everybody knew the word food, herbs, supplements. Maybe hydrotherapy was new to you, but go back and watch that other program. I hope they put that in the description, a link to that. If not, just scroll through the live tab. But you used a word there that maybe a lot of our listeners are not familiar with. Poultices. What are poultices?
So poultice is using an herb or something like charcoal or clay, and you mix it with water or some sort of liquid, and you can apply it to your skin. and it can be used for swellings. It could be used for wounds, for infections. It has drawing properties, but it's applied topically to the skin, and it's usually covered.
Okay, what are some examples of some poultices? What do you put in what do you put it in, and what is it that you put in there?
Well, I'll say as an example of something that could kind of count as a poultice, if you have a cut and you use Neosporin on a Band-Aid and cover your cut with it, in a way, that's like a mini poultice, that kind of concept. So it's not as complicated as it sounds. One of my favorite poultices that I think is really good to use is charcoal. So if you've ever heard of charcoal before, it's like a black powder. It's distinctive in its color, and it can stain things. So that's what people usually think of it for. But it has this great drawing power where it can adsorb. There's a difference between absorb and adsorb. But it can adsorb up to 100 times its weight in toxins and impurities. And so if you put that on an infection or something, I have a story of where as a kid, my grandmother put a charcoal poultice over my eye when I had an eye infection, and it helped to draw so much gunk and pus out of my eye. And it's really great to help clear things like that up quickly.
Nice. So for infections, how about like these things, other things that you use a charcoal poultice for? And then, and then what else? What other kind of poultices too?
Another popular poultice would be a cabbage poultice. So that may sound kind of odd that you can take a cabbage leaf and you can put it on yourself, but it's actually been around for a long time. It's known as a poor man's poultice. And you take a cabbage leaf and you roll it with a rolling pin and you kind of bruise it up and gently warm it. And you can put it over joints that are achy. If you have arthritis, if you have swelling, if you just have like inflammation and pain in an area, it's known, and it's, like I said, it's a well-used remedy, that the cabbage will actually help to alleviate some of that swelling. It has anti-inflammation properties and will help to soothe an area where you're experiencing pain.
That's amazing. And most of us who grew up with just mainstream everything, this would have sounded to me like just nutball territory. I'm just being honest. But now that we've lived this way as a family, my wife and I, she's done a ton of things like that with our kids, and I see it work. And I'm just like, yeah, this natural remedy stuff is no sideshow. It's God's true methods. So poultices, you got to be putting it on that cloth and applying it in, putting it on where it doesn't fall off. It's somewhat involved. Yes. Are there other topical skin-based remedies other than poultices that you recommend, maybe simpler ones or even more complex ones that are worthy of our attention as well?
There are, but if I may just make a comment on what you just said about how this almost sounds crazy if you weren't practicing it yourself. What's interesting is that I have found, as I've actually gone and studied some of the background and the history of how these are effective, that some of these remedies, like I just mentioned with the cabbage and even with the charcoal, they're not new. They were practiced for years. We brought it up in our hydrotherapy talk, that hydrotherapy has been around for hundreds of years. It's just that it's an art that we lost along the way. And so it's really exciting to have sessions like this to help to revitalize that and to bring that back to the forefront.
I forgot, Dr. Laura, that you had gone into that history. Man, that's a worthy program, folks, to go back and watch. I mean, don't stop this one. Stay with us because we want to answer your questions. Put your questions in the chat. We're going to get to your natural remedies questions, but that is powerful. This modernity, mystique that we have going on is actually we've lost the real true remedies that work, and now we're recovering them with you on this program. So, okay, we've got poultices. How about herbs? I know people want to hear about herbs. What are your favorite herbs and what can they be used for?
So I would have to say my favorite herb would be elderberry, if you've ever heard of elderberry. So for me personally, I deal with a lot of sinus issues and I get a lot of sinus infections. It's just something that happens when I get tired, when my body gets run down. It's happened ever since I was a kid. I think it's an inherited trait. But I have found over the years, quite a few years ago, I discovered this, and I've shared it with everyone who deals with similar issues, is that if I take elderberry As soon as I start feeling the slightest bit of a sinus infection coming on, that it will usually nip it in the bud and stop it before it even starts. So I used to get them so bad where I'd have fever, I'd have chills, I'd be congested, my head would throb, I'd lose my voice, the whole 9 yards. But if I start to feel like the slightest bit of a postnasal drip, I start taking elderberry, and that's it. I can go to bed, and the next morning it's not a problem. So elderberry is probably my favorite, and there is science to back up how amazing it is, that it helps to dry the mucosal membranes. It's very high in different antioxidants that help to boost our immune system and fight against infection. So that would definitely be my number one herb.
You know, I love elderberry too. And when I feel something coming on, I don't know as much as you do about like this one is the one. So I have a list of like a dozen things, and I just go pedal to the metal. I'm doing the hydrotherapy. I'm doing everything I can. And I typically knock it out. Like I don't get sick. This, by the way, is one of them. And just to mention that again. And Jeremy, your new team here who flashes up the QR code items.
That was great.
5 seconds from when Dr. Laura said elderberry, and that wasn't planned. You guys, Jason and whoever else was doing that in the background, you guys nailed it with that ad for LSR store. The elderberry is there, but you know what else? This one's got. That's why I brought this up. I know one of your favorite herbs is mint. This has got the peppermint in it. But tell us about mint herbs and why do you like peppermint?
So peppermint is another herb that's really good. It's usually pretty easy to obtain. You can make it as a tea, and it's really good for a variety of issues. If you have an upset stomach, it's great as a digestive aid. It helps to prevent nausea, and so it's good in that realm. It also will help with your immune system also because it has antibiotic type properties. It's anti-inflammatory. And another really cool thing with peppermint is if you have an essential oil, it will help with headaches. So I remember going to speak somewhere one time, and I was about to go up to the platform, and I had such a splitting headache that wasn't going away. But I happened to have some peppermint essential oil on me, and I just took a little bit and rubbed it on my temples, and it helps to soothe the headache. And so that's another thing that's really good to have in your medicine cabinet, to have peppermint essential oil, but also to have peppermint tea.
Oh yeah, that's my favorite tea. I love the peppermint tea. It's just tasty.
It tastes good too.
Oh, yeah, it's enjoyable. What are some of your other favorite herbs?
Some other herbs would be like parsley and oregano. These are garden herbs that you might have it in your yard or in a little flower box somewhere. But both of these have tremendous health benefits. You have parsley. It's a diuretic, which will help to eliminate toxins and help to balance your electrolytes. It's good for your kidneys. It's good for, potentially, they're doing some studies that there's some components in parsley that might even be beneficial for diabetes treatment. But again, that's like an ongoing field of study, but it just reminds us that God has given us so many amazing things in all of the foods and herbs that he's given us that provide healing when we eat of them abundantly and freely. And then you have oregano, which is an antioxidant, it's antimicrobial, it's anti-inflammatory. There's some studies that say it may even have some anti-cancer properties. Again, it's really good if you're dealing with a flu or a virus, a cold. You can get oregano supplements that really help to boost your immune system as well and just help to knock out illness as they begin.
Nice. You know, I think when a lot of people think of natural remedies for, I'm fighting something, I feel something coming on, they start thinking about like echinacea and oregano and others like that. Are those some that you recommend?
Yes, for sure. Echinacea is another good one. Thank you for bringing that up. Echinacea is known for its immune properties. So if you're really dealing with an illness or an infection, echinacea is known for being able to help cleanse your system and boost your immune system. And I remember you can even get that as the plant. A lot of individuals don't know the name echinacea. They know it more by the flower, a purple cone flower. So here in Connecticut, where I live, I actually see it in a lot of individuals' gardens out in front of their house. And they're pretty. And I think, wow, like these people, they have such a nice garden. They have no idea how beneficial their garden is for them. You can use the plant for benefit. But if you get it in a tincture form, when you take it, it actually makes your tongue kind of tingly. And that kind of shows you how potent it is and how strong it is and beneficial for your system. It's just a really strong herb that'll help knock out anything. Doesn't taste the greatest. It's not like mint, but it's really effective.
What's your favorite for respiratory, for putting in a diffuser or putting in a pot of hot water with the steam to breathe in? What are your favorite essential oils for that? And could you draw the distinction between ingestible and or whatever you'd want to call it? What should we make sure we are not ingesting with regard to the essential oils?
So I would say that for lungs and breathing, like I said, I have some experience with this with my sinus issues. Eucalyptus is a really good one. So eucalyptus and peppermint as well will have some benefit, but they really help to open your nasal passageways. They help to open your lungs. They help to soothe inflammation, that may be there that's promoting a cough and congestion. And it's a good point that you bring up, that it is important to realize that not every essential oil you can take internally. So there is a distinction between essential oils that are meant for diffusers and ones that are meant to be taken internally. And it's really important that if you want to take an essential oil internally, that you check to make sure it's a food grade essential oil. They're processed differently. Their potency is a little bit different. Whereas if you try to take internally, the ones that are meant for diffusers, they can cause damage to your GI tract, to the lining of your stomach, and it's too strong for our bodies to handle. But breathing them in has a lot of benefits also.
All right, so I'm gonna give myself some eucalyptus. I've been using pine essential oil for that purpose, but would there be any harm in just doing both at the same time?
No, I don't see any harm in doing both. When it comes
one
to
of
the
those
eucalyptus,
where if one drop is good, 20 drops is 10 times or 20 times better. But sometimes I need a governor where it's like, you don't need that much, Brother Scott.
No, essential oils are really strong. Usually 1-2 drops is enough. They're very potent. You don't want to get it in your eyes. But with eucalyptus, even if you don't have the oil, you can actually buy the plant itself. You can buy the leaves. And I've known some individuals who like to tie it up in their showers. And then as they're taking a shower with the steam, it kind of creates like a steam room where they're being able to get a nice breath treatment of eucalyptus that helps soothe them, gets them ready for the day.
Nice. While you're simultaneously doing your hydrotherapy, because you listened to Dr. Laura's last interview on LSR, and you're doing
a hot and cold shower.
Freezing yourself, but it's awesome. We won't get sidetracked on hydro, even though it's awesome. But I want to go back to charcoal. Just a quick story on this. Just a week and a half ago, one of my children got a bad stomach bug or foodborne bacteria or something, and was vomiting like through the night. It was one of those nights, and try to get a little bit of fluids in there, see if you can keep that down. That situation. And that charcoal, it's used in certain like mainstream medical contexts for poisonings, right? In terms of taking charcoal in water.
Yeah. So most ambulances here in the United States, they actually have charcoal on board because I started to mention it early that there's a difference between absorb and adsorb. Yeah. So if you think of like a sponge that you soak in water, it absorbs a lot of water. But then when you squeeze the sponge, what happens? All of the water like spills back out. You can wring it out. So charcoal has the ability to adsorb, where it's more like a magnet, and it grabs onto toxins and things that aren't good for you, and it holds on to it and doesn't let it go. And so if someone ingests poisons, then on ambulances and in hospitals, they administer charcoal internally because it'll help bind to that poison, and it can safely pass from the person's system without adding or taking away anything else or causing harm.
Fascinating.
But it also, in the case like you mentioned, it can be good for digestive upset too. If someone has like gas pains or upset stomach, again, charcoal can help bind to things that are causing problems and offer some relief.
Yeah, nice. Well, you've got a lot of ideas about herbs that you can grow, other things that you have to buy. Sometimes we're in a situation where we want to invest some money in that. But what about just some things we have in our kitchen anyway, or can have in our kitchen for health purposes in general that also double as a natural remedy?
So that's the most amazing part of natural remedies is a lot of individuals think that, oh, okay, great. Like there's all these different things. I got to run to the store and spend $500 on buying different supplements and herbs to help and keep me healthy. But most of us is at home that will give us benefit, that will help keep us healthy, that we may not even realize or think of them as natural remedies. And one of the first ones I think of with this is salt. You know, salt is really good. And I think probably most all of us have salt at home, yes. And it's great if you have a sore throat. You can put some salt in warm water and gargling it. It helps to soothe the sore throat. If you have any lesions or things in your mouth, then, you know, salt water can help to clean and irrigate and help to hasten healing. I've used salt diluted in some warm water before when I've had a hangnail that got kind of infected. You know, you soak your finger or your feet in there for a little bit, and it helps to draw infection out. So salt is very beneficial. Epsom salts is another thing that you can put in your bathtub when you have aches and pains and muscles acting up. You just soak in a nice warm tub with those Epsom salts, and it helps to really alleviate some of that muscle tension and pain because of its magnesium content. So those are things that you might already have at home that are really beneficial and are natural remedies. What else? I think of honey. Honey is another one. You can actually, I'll tell you this is like a quick little recipe that I use a lot during cold and flu season if you have a cough. If you take an onion and you slice it really thin and lay it out on a plate and you drizzle the whole thing with honey and cover it with saran wrap, let it sit for a few hours, you'll get this nice juice that comes out from the onions and mixes with the honey. And you can take that, and it's a natural cough syrup. It helps to soothe your cough. So if you're up at night and you're coughing and having trouble sleeping, you do that and it'll help soothe it so you can sleep through the night.
I've never heard that one before. I'm gonna have to try that one. We cut onions just for air, you know, purification, and use them as poultices. We've used onion poultices, but that's a good idea for a natural cough syrup. A whole lot better probably than the kind that I grew up taking, which was, you know, I got to actually swallow that stuff. But, you know, God's ways are actually more enjoyable. Like sometimes my kids are like, oh, I got to do this one. Oh, I'm like, you guys have no idea what they were shoving down our throats in the 80s, man. That stuff was way worse. But,
yeah, that one's actually pretty pleasant.
Yeah. How about lemon, ginger, garlic? Are those some kitchen remedies too?
All of those count as kitchen remedies as well. You know, lemon has high vitamin C. It's really good for your immune system. It's good. You have lemon water in the morning and it helps to cleanse your digestive system and kind of get yourself ready for the day. Ginger is fantastic if you're having an upset stomach. You can make some ginger tea, you know, just slice it, boil it for a little bit. And some people even like ginger chews, where they just chew the ginger. It's a little spicy for my taste, but it's great for soothing your stomach. If someone has an upset stomach, you know, they're feeling nauseous, it just helps to calm it right down. And again, has high antioxidant properties and is really beneficial for, you know, colds, flus, things like that. Garlic is another one that's just overall phenomenal. It's great if you're feeling sick or even just like as a maintenance thing. My grandmother loves to take garlic just about every day. She's a brave one. She dices it up on a spoon and swallows it with water like a pill. If I do that, it upsets my stomach, but she's so used to it. She does it every morning. And it's just a way to help keep your immune system strong so that you don't get sick, especially as, you know, summer's coming to an end. We're starting to go into fall, you know, cold and flu season's going to be approaching. You know, having garlic and lemon and ginger on hand is going to be really important to staying healthy, and just incorporating it into your daily diet, you know, or your weekly, you know, having it a few times a week. It's tasty, it's healthy, and it'll help keep you healthy and strong too.
Great on the garlic, and its benefits are increased when it's oxidized, right? When you, like your grandma who cuts it in small and dices it. I mean, I don't take it on an empty stomach. I didn't know you could even do that. She's got quite an iron constitution, but you know,
I think it's because she's used to it. I wouldn't recommend it.
Yeah.
I cook it. Another way is steaming it.
Oh yeah. Okay.
So you can steam it, and then when you eat it, it still has all of its healthy benefits, but it's no longer so spicy and strong. So it's a little more gentle on your stomach.
Yeah.
So just incorporating it into your food
Yep.
it's such a great flavor enhancer. It makes your food so good, and it makes
I
you stronger
agree.
too.
I agree. My wife uses it in the cooking. And then also I will, if I've got like a big dish where it's like one thing and there's a lot of different, stuff in one big bowl of food, I'll just throw good little garlic pieces diced into there and just stir it all in. And then I know I'm getting that good quality. And that's not what I'm fighting something. I love garlic. It's good for you. It's good for cardiovascular. I mean, you're talking a lot about remedies. But all of the things you're discussing are good for our overall health too, aren't they? And disease reduction and longevity, aren't they?
Well, that goes back to like what I was saying earlier. It's this amazing reminder that as we partake in the gifts that God has given us, in a variety of fruits and a variety of vegetables, of berries, of herbs, of root vegetables, of leafy vegetables like kale and collards. When we eat a variety of these things, nuts, seeds, grains, every single one of those has different components that are meant for our health. And what happens a lot is in science, we study individual components and how this particular component might help this particular problem. But as we eat these as foods and incorporate them into our lifestyle, we're getting benefits that not only help with any ailments we may be suffering with, but it helps to prevent us from having ailments in the future. It's just amazing how everything was created.
Folks, I don't know if you appreciate what you just heard there, but I know Dr. Harris has spent a lot of time in research in multiple doctoral studies. And one of them was, I noticed, philosophy. You just gave us a philosophy of nutrition. That it's not this one helps with that. This one, you're looking at too micro of a level sometimes in the way the world does it. You just go with God's methods, eat a variety of his foods. And I don't mean to put words in your mouth, but this is what I'm getting from what you said. And most of our problems start to take care of themselves when we follow that original blueprint, don't they?
For sure. Most definitely.
Well, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. Okay, so
Just,
supplements. You haven't yet. You said vitamin C and zinc and vitamin D. Are these things that you also recommend?
yeah, so I was just about to go there as we're talking about, studying individual components of foods. So this is something that a lot of individuals, they think that in order to be healthy and to have natural remedies, I need to go take a bunch of supplements. And I actually just worked with someone recently. I'll say this. I know of a young woman who takes a lot of different medications, like 15 different medications a day. And it's a lot. Then I know this other woman who says, I don't want to take any medications. I want to do everything naturally. But then she was having some health issues and she came to see me and she was taking like 20 different supplements every day. And at that point, your supplements kind of become pharmaceuticals. And there have been some studies that as we isolate individual components from foods, that they may actually become harmful because now we're taking them in doses that they weren't really intended to be taken in, or they don't have the other vitamins and minerals in the food with them that help them work together for an effect. So when it comes to supplements, there are some that I will recommend to my clients, but that's usually a case-by-case basis, depending on what they're struggling with, because I like to use supplements like as a medicine, not as a forever type thing. But I will say that vitamin D is a supplement, depending on where our listeners are from. You can tell us where you're listening from. But if you live in the northern parts of the world, if you ever see snow, you're probably deficient in vitamin D in the wintertime. And so it's beneficial to take vitamin D as a supplement. Whereas those who are able to live in a sunnier, warmer climate, you might be okay with vitamin D. Another supplement that is pretty universally recommended for those who adhere to really strict diets, particularly a strict vegan diet, would be vitamin B12. So if you're low in vitamin B12, you might be a little sluggish. You may not have a lot of energy. And so that might be a supplement that you need. But other than that, I use them medicinally.
See the wisdom in that, because when we take things in God's packages, for the most part, he's got all wisdom. He knew what he was doing in building the building blocks for our nutrition, right? In the foods that he's provided for us. And I love that one. If you ever see snow, our editing team, after these interviews, they pull out all these shorts and cuts and extracts. That's going to make a viral short right there. That was really, if you ever see snow, you are probably deficient in vitamin D. consider a vitamin D supplement. I see the wisdom in that. And that's not to replace, right, getting outdoors and getting some sunlight or some bright light in the morning. And as much sunlight is good for us, not burning us. But, I just want to make sure I know you're not saying that. But I do it, I live various places, but, I know that that's a need sometimes. And do you recommend that people test their vitamin D level, or is there kind of an amount that's just generally a minimum for folks who see snow?
There is a blood test that you can do if you go to your medical provider where they can check your vitamin D levels. And so it's always good to know exactly what you're working with. And that's usually part of a routine blood test. So you might even have that result already. But just generally speaking, the issue for those of us who live where it snows is that in the wintertime, first of all, it's really cold. We don't necessarily have the ability to go outside and take nice long walks in the wintertime. You could, I guess, but you got to bundle up, make sure you're not slipping on ice. But then also it's a lot more cloudy in the wintertime. And so when it's really dark and it's really cloudy, you're not getting as much of that sunshine. And the sunshine is the only place that we can get vitamin D outside of supplementation. And so in the summertime, make the most of it. This time of year, go outside, go for walks, sit in the sun, go to the beach. But in the winter time is when it might become necessary.
Good. Well, I want to just kind of get a summary from you. We've touched on a lot of different things, but what are your basic arsenal that everybody should have in their kitchen, in their cupboard at any given point? Give us your top, like, you got to make sure you have this, and this. If I had to narrow it down to, I don't know, 5 to 7 or whatever you're comfortable narrowing it down to in terms of your basic natural remedies arsenal.
Okay. Well, I would say as far as like the kitchen remedies go, if you don't already, you should always be having garlic on hand, ginger on hand. Those are great. As for additions, I feel like charcoal is the top of the list. Like, you need to have charcoal on hand. That is fantastic. It's an emergency first aid. Like we established, ambulances carry it for ingested poisons. So charcoal is really beneficial to have. I will say it is not a supplement for calling 911. If you have someone in that situation, natural remedies aren't meant to overtake, acute medical care. So keep that in mind. But charcoal is fantastic to have on hand. If you're dealing with infections, it could be an eye infection. It could be a spider bite. It could just be, a wound or general inflammation that you're trying to heal or draw an infection out. Charcoal is fantastic. The next one I would say would be elderberry. Elderberry is great, whenever you're having a cold, flu, whenever you're having a sinus problem, lung problems, have some elderberry on hand. The key is when you start feeling sick, like something's off, you take it right away, because you want to try to give your body the chance to fight something off before it's able to take a hold too much, if that makes sense. And so as soon as you start to feel ill, you take that. I would say, there's plenty of places you can get salves from, even like herbal salves. So there's like arnica is another herb that's really good for muscle pains. And you can buy like a lotion or a rub that has arnica in it that can help if you have a strained muscle. Even going back to like the hydrotherapy, I know this isn't a hydrotherapy talk, but as part of your first aid kit, have a heating pad, have ice packs. I feel like most of us would have those already, but those are also really good for, injuries, for sprains, for aches and pains. So those would definitely be things that everyone should have on hand at all times, just to keep it small. A small first aid.
Well, folks, yeah, I know that's a painful question to have to answer, but I think it's helpful just to get people started with some of those, and then you can add to those, as you grow in your natural remedies. Now, I know we've got
few essential oils.
Oh,
so have some like peppermint essential oil at least on hand. I'll say that too.
Okay, peppermint's your number one before eucalyptus, huh?
I think so.
Yeah, and not at eucalyptus's expense. They all have their place. And I love the
They
smell of a
do.
pine, man. I love living in the woods where there's a pine trees. And I know that there is healing property. There are healing properties in the fragrance of the fir and the evergreens. So you've got your shout out. Where are you watching from? Please submit in the chat. I know that's been crawling along the bottom. I hope some of you guys are ready to have a conversation now with Dr. Laura. I've enjoyed my time asking her my questions. Now it's you guys' turn. So if our AV team wouldn't mind throwing some questions up or just some hellos, we can give you a shout out if you tell us where you're watching from. I love hearing where folks are
See how
from
many
all over
people
the
see
world.
snow.
Yeah. How many of you guys see snow? We should do a poll of the audience. I wonder how many are in the tropics and getting that vitamin D. So, I think back to the Garden of Eden. There was no snow in the Garden of Eden. We got plenty. We didn't need supplements back then, did we? We were getting plenty of sunshine. So, yeah,
I would
here we
also
go.
be curious as to what natural remedies our listeners might use. Like,
Yes.
even of hearing things like, the salt and cabbage and things that we have in our kitchen, like what's something that you've used that's had a surprising benefit?
Natural Re says, where is this doctor located? And Dr. Laura Harris is located in Connecticut. So we gave her URL. If you wouldn't mind putting that up again, Jace, that we can have the folks who aren't near Connecticut can still get in touch with Dr. Laura. She does consultations, and you can take advantage of her services there through her ministry, which is Wellspring Health Ministry. Did I say it right?
Yes, you did.
Well, I got the Wellspring part right. The health ministry part, I got to make sure I memorize that. So who's up next? Thank you for that question, Naturally. Here we've got Sudeep D. Oxalates. Can you comment, Dr. Laura?
That's an
oxalates
interesting.
And their effects on health.
So oxalates, this is something that I think of, especially when it comes to spinach. So having too much of oxalates in our diet can cause health problems. And one of the most common forms of those health problems is kidney stones when we have too much of that in our system. And so there has been cases of individuals who eat too much foods containing oxalates, like spinach, and that can have a negative effect. So again, it's important to be having a variety of different foods. Spinach is still really good for you, but make sure it's not the only green that you're eating every day.
Yeah, and I had a relative ask me just recently. I was putting some sweet potatoes together. Folks who've listened to me know I love sweet potatoes. And the relative said, "Are you concerned about the oxalates?" And I had never heard of that in relation to sweet potatoes. So I had to look it up. But my immediate response was just, well, one of the longest living people groups in the world, the traditional Okinawan diet, subsists like 60% of their caloric intake was from sweet potatoes. So I think they're pretty safe in that regard. But are there any other foods other than spinach that we need to just, make sure we're not eating enormous quantities of because of that potential kidney stone increased risk?
Another food that's high in oxalates would be rhubarb. If you like rhubarb, that's one that I feel like a lot of people don't necessarily eat all the time, but they tend to be high in oxalates. Beets tend to be, have a higher level of oxalates as well. But again, it goes back to kind of like you were just saying, with your sweet potatoes, is the importance of balance. So I think I had mentioned the last time I was here working with a client where they had basically narrowed their diet down to like 3 or 4 different things. And they were so focused on being healthy, and they knew that these 3 or 4 things were healthy, that was all they ate every day, literally every day. And then they ended up having health problems because of that. So it goes back to the principle of God has given us nutrients and things to keep us healthy and whole. That's in a variety of foods. And if we focus on individual things, it can be detrimental. So we need to make sure we have a variety to get the full benefit.
And that's theologically, biblically correct too, because when God put all these wonderful foods out for Adam and Eve in the garden, he said, of all the fruit and trees of the Garden of Eden, you may freely eat, but don't eat of that one tree of the knowledge of good and evil, because that's where the enemy is, who wants to destroy you, Satan. But he didn't say, only 3 or 4 of these varieties of foods you may freely eat. He said, oh, all these. And that's where the variety really comes in. It's enjoyable that way. And we get a wide variety of nutrition, just like your philosophy earlier. I think that was a really helpful takeaway. Do we have more questions, guys?
If I could even mention as well,
Yep.
If when it comes to the oxalates, if someone is dealing with kidney stones, then lemon, one of those kitchen remedies, lemon or even apple cider vinegar, mixing that with water. There's like a little drink that you can make, but that's something that incorporating into your diet can help to break up and eliminate those kidney stones. So
excellent.
That's a problem that someone's having from oxalates.
Yeah. Good. So thank you for that question, Sudeep D. Rabbit girls. That's my daughter's favorite animal. She'd love that name. What's a good natural medicine for pollen allergy and fire ant allergy?
Ooh. So as best as possible, avoid them. That's always the first. But some other natural remedies that might be good for allergies. I've heard some individuals who use oregano with some benefit to, helping boost their immune system against allergies. We talked a little bit about honey. So for those who are allergic to pollen, sometimes it's beneficial to have honey, local honey, from your local town, if possible, and you can have small amounts of it, and it helps to let your immune system know that this isn't a foreign invader. It helps to kind of teach your immune system not to overreact when it is introduced to pollen. But the key is to get it local, because then it's going to be made from local plants. Another one, if someone's having a lot of issues with their lungs, and sinuses because of allergies, mullein leaf is another really good herb that's great for respiratory, for breathing when it comes to allergies. As far as fire ants, if someone is extremely allergic, again, none of the recommendations that we've talked about today substitute emergency medical care. If you need that, you need to go get it. But charcoal, applying it to bites is really beneficial, and that it can help to draw out some of the venom of the ants and help to soothe the inflammation of the area. So I would definitely say putting charcoal on the bites might be helpful. Here in our local area, we actually have a plant as well called plantain. It's different from the banana-like plant. They're little leaves. And by breaking those up and putting them onto bites, it's soothing as well. So those would be the ones I'd say for the fire ants. And then for the pollen, like the mullein, the oregano, and the wildflower honey.
Very helpful. I hope you guys are taking notes. What's up next for our questions? And who can we say hello to out there? Thank you for the question.
Haven't found out if anyone sees snow yet.
All right, here we've got quilting by Sarah. North Carolina, what is the natural remedy for thyroid instead of medication? And glad to have you, quilting by Sarah from North Carolina.
Welcome. That is a good question as well. I feel like this is one of those ones that I say is like a case-by-case basis. So if you're dealing with hyperthyroidism versus hypo, so if you would like a more like detailed answer for yourself specifically, reach out. We can schedule a consultation. I'm happy to answer those questions for you, like one-on-one. But overall, one of the minerals that's really important for our thyroid is iodine. And so that is something that you can purchase iodine. But another really beneficial food, going along with natural remedies, is kelp. So kelp, the whole seaweed family, having that, incorporating that into your food. You can even buy like a kelp powder that you sprinkle on your food. I personally don't like the seaweed taste. Some people love it, but it's really beneficial for thyroid health.
My wife and I have a difference of opinion on this matter. In fact, we've got one of our children, if anybody attempts to even eat seaweed in the presence of him, he will, I can't do it. I just can't. I mean, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. If God asked me to eat seaweed, I would. But for now, I think I can, in good conscience, take the iodine supplement while my wife does the kelp. And she's a better person than I because of it. But God is good to give us options sometimes, huh? Thank you for that,
seaweed
Sarah.
is actually beneficial in a lot of ways. It has a lot of those like trace minerals that sometimes we're lacking from our diet. And one of those is iodine.
Thanks for rubbing it in, Dr. Laura. I appreciate you taking my wife's side on that. No, I know. That's the best. That is the best because it's God's packages, as we were saying earlier. Who's up next? Something good for high blood pressure.
Ooh, we could do a whole talk on blood pressure. That's I
Maybe
actually do
next
have a whole
time.
class that I teach on blood pressure. There are so many good things for blood pressure. Just out of the ones that we discussed here today, we talked about garlic. You know, there have been some studies that by incorporating more garlic into your diet, that it can help to lower your blood pressure. So that's a really good one. But even like not discussed here today, and it sounds really simple, but water.
I knew it. Yeah, I was hoping you'd say that. Oh, it's so simple and free.
So you'd have to ask, like, how much water do you drink a day? And ideally, you know, it kind of varies person by person, but we always hear like 8 cups of water a day, right? But the actual recommendation is you take your weight and you divide it by 2. And then that's how many ounces of water you should be drinking a day. Now, if you eat a lot of fruits and veggies, you know, if you have watermelon, there's a lot of water in there. So it's kind of like a balance. But water, what happens is when we become dehydrated, our blood the majority of our blood is made out of water. So when we become dehydrated, our blood in a sense kind of thickens, and it gets harder for our heart to pump it through our system. So then our heart has to work harder and apply more force to make our blood flow. And that results in a rise in our blood pressure. So sometimes just by making sure we drink enough water and exercise, that's another one, to help promote circulation, that our blood flows easier through our body, and then our blood pressure can come down. So
Excellent.
water and exercise are 2 things, but then incorporate garlic into your diet. There's a bunch of other herbs and things you can do, but you can send me a message. We'll spend the whole time on
maybe you can walk us through, you know, a whole dietary program change too that will help with cardiovascular health on another program. Or I mean, you make the suggestion. What do you guys want to hear from Dr. Laura next time? But when you said the thing about exercise, I wanted to follow up with that. Does it have to be vigorous jogging or, you know, a simple walking going to suffice for blood pressure?
No, walking more than suffices. So there's an idea that people have that in order for their exercise to count, they have to get a gym membership and they have to be working out and spending $100 at the gym every month. But walking is something that is so essential. It uses most of our organs and muscles. You want to try to get your heart rate up a bit. You know, a good rule of thumb is you can talk, but you can't sing. So if you can sing while you're walking, you might want to pick up the pace a little bit if you can. But for individuals who maybe they're not used to walking and they can't do that, just start with whatever you can do. And you gradually build up to it. And it's going to have benefits on your blood pressure. It's going to have benefits on your blood sugar, because for those who are diabetic, it's going to use up extra blood sugar and glucose that's in your blood. It's good for cholesterol. It's good for mental health for those who struggle from depression. It's good for so many things. All of us should be walking every day.
Fantastic. Fantastic. All right. Who's got the next question? We've got Merzelli Jean watching from Canada. I was just in Canada. Man, I was in British Columbia. That is a beautiful province. You know, the name of their province is actually Beautiful British Columbia. It's on their license plate. But I don't know what province you're from. It's just nice. British Columbia. But on their license plate, makes it look like that's the name of the province because it is so beautiful. It's worthy of that name. She wants to know what to do for mucus in the throat.
I would start with elderberry. You know, as I said, there's been some scientific research that elderberry actually helps to dry up the mucosal membranes. And so that's really beneficial for, you know, from our nose all the way down to our lungs to help dry up mucus secretions. So that's why I say that's one of those great herbs supplements to have on hand. You can buy it in tincture form. You can buy it in like a syrup form. You can get the elderberries themselves, but that's really good to have on hand. Another one would be drinking, you know, lemon water can help with that. We talked about peppermint tea. Peppermint tea can be beneficial too, or even like just anything that's warm. So you make a hot tea with lemon and ginger, with peppermint and lemon and honey, and it'll help to soothe your throat and help to break up some of that mucus.
It's all right. Very good. Thank you, Merzelli Jean. Appreciate your question. I apologize if I'm butchering your name, but here we got Mary Boki, a natural remedy for dry eyes.
Ooh, that's an interesting one. I might have to do a little research on that one. I haven't come
Would you
into many
start
people.
with making sure you're properly hydrated? Is that possibly
That
going
would
to
be a
maybe
good first start.
yeah, rule that out?
Usually if someone's dealing with dry eyes, they have a different underlying condition that's kind of promoting that. And so I'd have to know, like, what is the underlying issue. But definitely, making sure you're hydrated would be a very good first start. But yeah, there might be something else going on that needs to be looked at there.
Is that part of your philosophy? I can't remember the doctoral degree. It was philosophy of something something. But is that part of your philosophy of health? Is understand what is the underlying cause of a symptom, so you're not treating the symptom, but you're addressing the root cause?
So when I work with my clients, we try to see the whole big picture. I've worked with many clients who come in for a specific symptom, and we're able to kind of go back and see where it's caused by something else. And so I try to work with my clients, on their physical health, on their lifestyle. So it's not just, the things that they eat and the supplements that they need to take, but are they exercising? Are they drinking enough water? Are they sleeping good at night? What kind of stress are you dealing with at home? We try to address the physical health, the emotional health, the spiritual health, and all of that together. So that way it eliminates the symptoms you have more energy, and you're feeling better going forward.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for that. And Mary, you know how to reach out to Dr. Laura to work on the bigger issues maybe that are going on there. So let's go to another question. Here we have Marie Collins. Do you know of an herb? Do you know of an herb that is compatible to the medication albendazole to kill the tapeworm parasites? Boy, that one's definitely above my head.
Yeah. So I think of two potential contenders off the top of my head. One of them is papaya. So papaya has shown some promise and been known to help deal with parasites. And another is grapefruit seed extract. That you can buy at your local health food store. I was going to say our local health food store, but whatever your local health food store is, grapefruit seed extract is known to help with kind of cleaning out the digestive tract and cleaning parasites. And papaya has shown some promise for that as well.
Excellent. Thank you for that. And thank you, Marie. Sharon James says, what can you do for gallbladder issues / gallstones?
So that would start off, again, we're looking at a whole picture here. It's going to take changes in diet, to see like what might be causing that. Hydration is going to be a very big thing as well. Making sure that you're not eating foods that are help promoting that, making sure that you're hydrated so your body can flush out things. You want to avoid foods that are high in oils, that are high in fats, and do some sort of like a detox to help clean out your system. And that's going to give some benefit to dealing with gallstones and helping to clean out your gallbladder.
I have a friend that was suffering from this and depression simultaneously. And somebody said to him, what you just said, are you eating a lot of oil containing foods, fried foods and these sorts of things? And he thought, oh, this is crazy. Oil, I mean, it's plant-based. At first it was like, I'm not sure about this, but gave it a try and reduced the oil intake dramatically and found a huge benefit, and still promotes that to this day. So that is the cue for us to wrap up and say bye to you guys. Thanks for the questions. I really mean that. I really love when we get to do this live, especially on natural remedies or even on topics that you all have asked for. So put in the comments, what topics would you like to hear on LSR Live? And we can make sure our guests are meeting you guys' needs. That's why we're here. We're here because we care about each and every one of you. We know you're a creation of God, a son, a daughter of the creator God. And Jesus came, died for your sins and mine so that we can all have eternal life. And in the meantime, enjoy a healthy lifestyle that he's given to us, including natural remedies. So Dr. Laura, let's put her QR code one more time up there as we say bye to her, and then I'll mention what's the next episode. And there's the wellspringlifestyle.org. you can reach out and ask her any further questions, receive consultations, and check out their services and teachings that they do at Wellspring Health Ministry. Dr. Laura, thank you for coming back. I hope we get to do this
Thank you
again
for having
sometime.
me.
God bless you. And next week, friends, we've got Dr. Walt Cross spills the secrets on home remedies. See you Wednesday, the 27th of August, 4 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Central. And never to forget to thank our producer, Christian Digital Network. And I think, folks, we just upped our game here on the production side this week. We got a great team that's been putting this episode together. So we just want to thank CDN, from likes to lives changed. Subscribe to their YouTube channel, and we'll see you all next time. I'm Scott Ritzema, your